Piers Morgan, he perhaps is the person who has most made a career out of just being wrong. And then, there's many others who are wrong all the time, Bill O'Reilly and Anderson Cooper and everyone else. Being wrong and having that told to their face that they're fucking idiots, proven to them by people who are far smarter on these things. Sorry, I keep saying them, proven to him. And his whole career is just clip after clip of him being schooled for being a goddamn moron on, like, he just spouts Western propaganda, pro-Israel propaganda, and then gets just laminated in truth that makes him look like a moron. And yet that's his whole career. He does it again the following day. It's unbelievable that you can be so wrong. And he's wrong while seeming indignant and like talking down to his guest, who then educates him on how the world works. It's a bizarre, sad. That's a sad man. It'd be like someone who made their entire MMA career by just having their face punched in. Like every fight they got into, they just lost all their teeth and they're blacked out in the first 12 seconds. And yet somehow they keep getting paid to do it. It's as if people just tuned in to see them get obliterated. And you're like, wow, he's doing it again today. He also had a CNN show for years that tells you a lot about CNN. Here he is talking to Professor Jeffrey Sachs from Columbia University, and he's awesome. He's based. He's right on just about everything, at least nowadays. I don't know how it was 20 years ago, but anyway.
You seem very reliant on accepting Putin's worldview rather than perhaps the stark reality of the barbarism with which he's executed this war.
And of course, I'll play the response where he gets schooled. But I just want to say that this is a common trick used in these interviews, used by Piers Morgan, used by people when I go on with people that want to attack me, is if you are speaking the truth, if you are relaying what actually is happening in the actual real world, then they go, well, boy, Putin would like to hear that. This was used against, Janine Garofalo when she'd go on Fox News before the Second Iraq War, 2002, 2003, and they'd go, I bet Saddam Hussein loves you. It's a pathetic, sad talking point to try and get people to stop undermining Western propaganda. And anyway, let's watch how thoroughly Jeffrey Sachs destroys it.
You seem very reliant on accepting Putin's worldview rather than perhaps the stark reality of the barbarism with which he's executed this war.
Yeah, maybe because I know too much about the United States, because the first war in Europe after World War II was the U.S. bombing of Belgrade for 78 days to change borders of a European state. The idea was to break Serbia, to create Kosovo as an enclave, and then to install Bondesteel, which is the largest NATO base in the Balkans, in the Southwest Balkans. So the U.S. started this under Clinton, that we will break the borders. We will illegally bomb another country. We didn't have any UN authority. This was a, quote, NATO mission to do that. Then I know the United States went to war repeatedly, illegally, in what it did in Afghanistan, and then what it did in Iraq, and then what it did in Syria, which was the Obama administration, especially Obama and Hillary Clinton, tasking the CIA to overthrow Bashar al-Assad, and then what it did with NATO illegally bombing Libya to topple Muammar Gaddafi, and then what it did in Kiev in February 2014. I happened to see some of that with my own eyes. The U.S. overthrew Yanukovych together with right-wing Ukrainian military forces. We overthrew a president. And what's interesting, by the way, is we overthrew Yanukovych the day after the European Union representatives had reached an agreement with Yanukovych to have early elections, a government of national unity, and a stand down of both sides. That was agreed. The next thing that happens is the opposition, quote unquote, says we don't agree. They stormed the government buildings and they deposed Yanukovych. And within hours, the United States says, yes, we support the new government. It didn't say, oh, we had an agreement. That's unconstitutional what you did. So we overthrew a government, contrary to a promise that the European Union had made. And by the way, Russia, the United States, and the EU were parties to that agreement. And the United States, an hour afterwards, backed the coup. Okay, so everyone's got a little bit to answer for. In 2015, the Russians did not say, we want the Donbass back. They said peace should come through negotiations, and negotiations between the ethnic Russians in the east of Ukraine and this new regime in Kiev led to the Minsk II agreement. The Minsk II agreement was voted by the UN Security Council unanimously. It was signed by the government of Ukraine. It was guaranteed explicitly by Germany and France. And you know what? And it's been explained to me in person. It was laughed at inside the US government. This is after the UN Security Council unanimously accepted it.
He goes on to talk about how the Minsk agreement was laughed at because the U.S. and Ukraine and Germany never intended to abide by it. So basically, they signed this peace deal with Russia. They then secretly, behind closed doors, say we're never doing any of that, and they used it to spend the time before Russia came to the realization that the Minsk agreement would not be held up. They used that time to heavily arm Ukraine, to basically prep for the war they have created with Ukraine. Jeffrey Sachs, as you see there, is absolutely speaking truth. He just obliterates Piers Morgan, and yet Piers Morgan has the gall to introduce this question with, why is it you love to spout Putin talking points? And every day Piers Morgan is schooled like this, it seems, because there's a new viral clip every day of just how dumb this man is. And yet he just does it. He keeps doing it because it goes viral. That's what our media has become, is this just absolute shit show